Before I even get into Terry Silver's arc this season and what it means for the future and his relationships in regards to Cobra Kai itself, Kreese and whatnot, I want to just say, this is one of the things that I absolutely love about this show, is that every single legacy character, I'm talking from Ali to CHOZEN to Kumiko to Terry Silver and potentially Mike Barnes next season, they all are returning with a purpose. There is a story element that they add that wasn't there before. They're not just being brought in like some fan fiction where, okay, let's bring this person back because it will just be cool. No, they're giving it real reason, real story, and it works. They weave it into the current storyline, and they not only do they make the movies themselves look even better, especially Karate Kid 3, but I will be touching upon that throughout the video. They enrichen the universe and the characters. I stand by what I said. I don't think I've ever seen any sequel done this well. That includes everything. I mean, the Creed saga from Rocky, that comes close. But in terms of, like, Star Wars or whatever, what have you, nothing, Fantastic Beasts, nothing comes close to this. Nothing comes close to this in any way. And I can only imagine if you grew up with the original trilogy and you saw those 3 movies, even the next Karate Kid, and you must have thought, man, how cool would it have been if CHOZEN and Silva interacted? Well, guess what? Next season, you're gonna get it. How cool would it be if Johnny and Mike Barnes interacted? Or were in the same place? You're probably gonna get that next season as well. How cool would it be if CHOZEN came to America? You've got it. Like, how cool would it be if Daniel and Johnny worked together? You've had it. Like, how cool would it be if Kreese and Silva were back together? Like, it's all the little things in this show have been so earned, and this is what's great, is they let a season develop around a character before bringing another one in. So let's take the first legacy character that was brought back. We're not going to count Johnny and Daniel, because although they are legacy, it was their story. The first one was Kreese. They brought him back in with a bang, he served the story, and he was the center of Season 2. CHOZEN, they brought him back in Season 3. Like, I think CHOZEN, Ali, and Kumiko kind of shared the legacy spotlight in Season 3, and each one of them served a purpose. Ali to bring Daniel and Johnny together, CHOZEN to redefine Miyagi-Do, give it Miyagi-Do's version of strike first, and then Kumiko helped Daniel find his balance and the letters that he needed for his inner peace, in probably one of the most beautiful scenes I've ever seen in any medium. Then you cut to Terry Silver, who's brought in, but unlike those characters, Terry Silver is different. He's hesitant to get back in. He's hesitant to return to the fold. And I did say from the trailer, one angle they could take with him is the Luke Skywalker Last Jedi route, where he's a hermit, he doesn't want to be involved, he wants to be a recluse, he wants to be away from it all. And the difference between this and that is this is earned. This is something I can believe. This is something that, you know, when you think of where Terry Silver was at mentally the last time we saw him, the dude was a psychopath. He was unstable, he was mental, and he was completely out of it. But it was one of the shining highlights of Karate Kid 3, which is why we all love that movie so much, is Silva literally is the definition of a Saturday morning cartoon villain. Definite. Like, he is that villain. And he elevated that movie to so many levels. You know, hugely in part to Thomas Ian Griffith. When they rewrote the role around his martial arts abilities, you know, I think we can give a lot of credit to him. But to hear him say this season, when Kreese finds him, you know, he's in his mansion, he's living the good life, and he's nuanced. He's a completely different character. Like, he's the same dude, but he's completely balanced. And to hear that he was, you know, so hopped up on cocaine, he thought he could do anything, you know, his quest was out for revenge. I guarantee you that's what the creators spoke to Thomas about before they brought him back. They said, okay, you know, we're going to give your character some grey, because that's one thing they do with each character, is they don't just have them as the 80s stereotypical evil villain. They give them a grey centre. And although the backstory that we got in Season 3 for how Kreese and Silva escaped the war together, where Kreese sacrificed himself for Silva probably more than once, you know, we always knew about that. But to see where Silva is at mentally at the start of this season, I don't think balance does it justice. That Terry, for the first, I'd say up until the halfway point, Terry is probably the most balanced character I have seen in the show, besides probably CHOZEN and Ali and Kumiko. Like, he's the most balanced out of Kreese, Daniel, Johnny. The level of nuance that he has is insane. Like, up till, you know, the moment where Kreese is like, hey, they're attacking our students. Why don't we do something about it? And Silva's like, nope, nope. I agreed to come back to finish what we started. And it was never about revenge. It was never about this, that, whatever. And if we're gonna win, we need to learn from the mistakes of the past. And one thing I said in my recent Kreese video, because you know these characters are interlinked, is if Kreese had left well enough alone, if Kreese had just let Terry do what he was doing, I think Robbie and Tori would have won, respectively, on their own. I think Cobra Kai would have won on their own, without cheating, and without coming in clutch at the last minute. I genuinely believe that. Silva was telling them exactly what they needed to do to get the win. To focus all their energy on the tournament, and not waste any energy if it wasn't going to score a point. And the way he rolled up to the dojo is basically how I said he would roll up. Is he would roll up with Kreese, they'd be suited and booted, and he tries to apologize to Daniel. Now, obviously, in Daniel's defense, I mean, come on, you're not going to believe him after everything that he's done to you, are you? So that's something I can completely understand Daniel on. But Silva, up until the moment Kreese pulls the trigger on him, quite literally, he remains the most balanced person I think I've seen in this show. And he brings it home to Kreese. He tells him flat out, what about striking first? What about it? You took Johnny's son. If that's not a strike, I don't know what is. You know, he puts it on him. He tells him exactly what someone needed to say it to him. You took the man's son. How much more personal can you make it? And it's in this that I think the scene where they're using students against each other, I don't think Terry was actually intending to take control of the dojo. That's not what I think he was doing. I think he was trying to be everything that he wanted Kreese to be. He wanted Kreese to see another way. And he was just having fun. He was just having a bit of playful, you know, back and forth bickering. You know, there is a look on his face of, oh, I can't believe Kreese is beating me again. But that's just, you know, that's just the nature of the sport. They're both competitive. But I think Kreese takes it the completely wrong way and assumes that Terry's trying to jump rank, and he takes it personally. And this is something that I said in Karate Kid 3. Kreese was in the co-pilot seat. Silva was driving that machine. So I was fascinated this season at how they were going to manage the both of them coming together. You know, Johnny and Daniel coming together, you know they can put it behind them because they're just two dudes who have a rivalry. Terry and John come from the war, where when you by design, you are programmed as a soldier to climb the ranks. Like, that's military, that's basic military stuff. You are programmed to climb rank. And what did Kreese do when he defeated Captain Turner? Basically became the captain. So it's natural for Terry, who's the lieutenant, to stake a claim and say, hey, maybe I'm up now. Like, if you know your Star Wars, it's the Sith thing, where the apprentice will overrule the master. That's usually how it always plays out. And I think what's heartbreaking about it, and I remember saying this before Season 4 dropped, in Karate Kid 3, when Kreese goes to visit Silva, he's giving him the keys and he can lead a new life. What does Silva do? Silva drags Kreese right back in the mess and continues him on that same path that he was on, if not worse. When, in that moment, John could have turned his whole life around. He could have turned everything around for himself. There's a reversal here at the start of this season where Silva is in that perfect life. Yeah, he might miss the karate days a little bit and he might have some nostalgia for it, but he seems to be at peace. He seems to be leading a happier life. While, you know, it doesn't look like much to maybe you or me or Kreese, Terry has found, as he says, clarity. And Kreese dragging him back in is exactly as me, shout out to Ken Cole, and others have been saying, is a double-edged sword. Because as great as Terry and Kreese's friendship is, by design, they are militarily, I don't know if that's a word, programmed to climb rank. Who's the leader? You know, you've got two alphas there. Who's the leader? You know, eventually they're going to clash. And for a good couple of episodes, Kreese was taking a back seat. He was taking a back seat, and then he started to cotton on onto what was going on. And he said, you need to fall back in line. Which I understand, you know, of course, you want Terry to be sure, okay, I wanted you back. I don't want you to take my position. I'm still head sensei. But what Kreese didn't need to do was remind Terry of that terrible flashback to the moment where he was a quivering soldier in the corner, scared for his life, and bring all those memories back to the forefront. That's why I said in my recent video that Terry turning Kreese into the police is Kreese's fault. It's literally Kreese. He was asking for it. You're bringing up memories like that. You're going to evoke not just PTSD, trauma. Bad trauma that Terry works so hard to get rid of. So that's on Kreese. And that's something that Kreese is going to have to deal with going forward. And that's what this season's been about. It's been about perspectives. Robbie thinks that, you know, he's just using Cobra Kai to get what he wants. And look what happens. He ends up booting his student right in the face. And the guy's choking on his blood. Daniel's arc all over again. You've got Kreese that finally sees what he's been doing wrong this entire time by seeing Silva, you know, give Tori the instructions the same way he gave to Johnny, and now he's like, oh man, I was a bit of an arse. I was a bit horrible, you know. And then there's the perspective of Daniel seeing Sam use Johnny's techniques. Then there's the perspective of Johnny losing his way and then losing Miguel. You know, there's so much of that this season. And one thing that really is so heartbreaking for this is going forward, I don't see a world where Terry and Kreese make up. I don't think so. I think with the information that we do know, as much as they could go to 7 seasons, they might do. I think with a 6-season roadmap, okay, let's just say, for example, there's a 6-season roadmap. You've just set Terry up to be the final villain. Now, they could do something with Mike Barnes in the redemption field, maybe, but I do think we need some bad guys to fight. You know, we really do. I think every character, as I've been saying for a while, every character that we've had for the past 4 seasons that we care about will be on one side of the Force. And then Terry and his army will be on the other side. It'll be a major army against another army. It'll be an army of karate students all over the valley, and it'll turn out into like some endgame portal moment when everyone's all together. Robbie and Miguel team up, can't wait for that. Oh! But there is no world where I see these two having a reconciliation. I really don't. The only way I can see these two coming back together is when they both exit. And when I say exit, I mean death. These two are so wrapped up in the war. The war is still going on for them. Even though the war's finished, they're still in the war. Terry got out of it and he started to build himself a new life, and then Kreese dragged him back into it. So now they're still living the war, even though it's done and dusted. And they honestly remind me of characters that you see in war movies all the time, where they try to live a happy life after the war, and they just can't. They can't, no matter what they do. And this is something that I hope the real world actually acknowledges about war veterans, of something that they actually have to go through. You know, something that's always glossed over. There's a speech that John delivers when he's talking to Terry about, you know, we were basically called killers and everything after watching our friends die. Like, could you imagine that? You see all your closest friends and comrades, your brothers in arms or sisters in arms, they all die right in front of you. You come back and then you get called a villain. That's going to screw anyone up. And that, again, is a testament to the real world. I've talked a lot about this show and father figures, but there's even more themes in this show that can be applicable to the real world that we're in, and the effects that war has on an individual. And it really explores that in this show. And even though Kreese plucked Terry back into the chaos, it didn't take much to get Terry back into the fold. As soon as he put his ponytail up, you knew Terry was back in town. Like, you knew from that point on. And I love the moments where he's training Robbie in the back of the dojo, because, again, very symbolic. It echoes Daniel and Terry in Karate Kid 3. But it just reaffirms to me that he doesn't care if Robbie was teaching Kenny Miyagi-Do. He's not interested in that. He knows that Robbie is an aggressive fighter and he fights with his anger, but he can see that he's afraid. And that, in essence, helps Robbie. You see what I'm saying? For the first half of this season, Silva was probably the most balanced you're ever going to see him. And then as the season progresses, he starts getting chipped away to the point where that conversation happens with Kreese, and he's all of a sudden a scared soldier back in Vietnam. And what happens? Old Silva comes out, and it's not the Silva that was buddy-buddy in Karate Kid 3. It's worse. When Terry turns on his own best friend, there is nothing he can't do. And the level of villain that has been introduced this season, I mean, hell, when Johnny goes to the dojo to confront Terry for what he's been doing with Robbie and Shannon, you know, it's like a horror movie. You know, he's calling him over the cameras and all that kind of jazz, luring him to secret locations. Now, Kreese is a villain and a baddie, but Terry is another level. There is nothing off the table now, and Terry's threat to Johnny at the end of this season, I'd keep an eye on that. Because one thing I've said with this show, you can go all the way back to Season 2. Or Season 1, but Season 2 has a good example. Where Kreese says to Johnny, better make sure LaRusso doesn't sink his mitts into him. What happens to Miguel? LaRusso sinks his mitts into him. Why is Robbie over at Miyagi-Do? He should be here at Cobra Kai. You should be training that boy. What happens in Season 3? You see Tori's threat to Hawk? I mean, that was just paid off. Like, and then Chozen's line of, you know, what do you mean? When Daniel talks about rivalries. So, yeah, there will be more to that line. I think Johnny is in some considerable danger next season. I think him getting beaten up in the dojo this season was an inkling of what's going to happen to him. And I wouldn't be surprised if you see Johnny going up against Mike. Like, I mean, that's too good of an opportunity to pass up. And Amanda's already hinted at Mike by saying, is there any other secret people from your backstory that we have to worry about? And he's like, well, not yet. You know, so they're going to pay that off. But currently, Johnny is on the road to Mexico to go and get Miguel back. Robbie's going with him. So that leaves Chozen, Daniel, Tori, Sam, Eli, and, you know, Chris and Dimitri and whoever else there to defend the valley from Terry. Now, Kreese is going to be inside. It'll be debatable how much he'll be in the next season. But there's a moment this season where he's beating up Stingray. And it literally looks like I'm watching the Joker. Like the movie. Like, I'm watching the Joker. The music is like jaunty and eerie and disturbing. Like Thomas Ian Griffith could have played a fantastic Joker. Like a tall one, but a fantastic Joker. He's got the mannerisms, he's got the expressions, the details of his character, and just the little things, the little slants of the neck, the little poses, because he's towering over everyone, the little head down, you know, looking like Michael Myers in many occasions. And when he's beating up Stingray, it's like straight out of a horror movie. That's the level of villain that has now been introduced. Dare I say it, there isn't much that's off the table now. Now, I don't think knives and guns are going to come into play. I just want to put that out there. But I do think there are other levels to this show that are now not off the table. I think next season, the characters are not safe. And I think Kreese, while he would do things like put a Cobra in a dealership every now and then, he still had some honor and integrity. He would leave it for the mat. So was Terry going to, until Kreese decided to pluck at his strings. Now, however, it's a different story. And we have to take into account that I'm not sure where Kyler will go. Kyler, I would like to stay in Cobra Kai because he fits it. But I can see Kenny staying, so Kenny and Kyler stay. Tori is definitely leaving at some point because she's too loyal to Kreese. And she knows she's got that trophy by foul play. And Robbie and Silva, Robbie does not like him. I mean, I think in episode 4 when they were training, I think Robbie took a liking to him. But then in the finale, when he's like, you're showing him respect. This fight should be over by now. Do you want to fight him? Like that Terry knows he's not going to be able to get through to Robbie. And after the scene that Robbie had with Johnny, I think Robbie's allegiance is clear. And everything that Tanner said about Robbie making that choice, Robbie's home. He's gone home. You know, I mean, he could remain in Cobra Kai for a little bit, but I think for all intents and purposes, he's home. He's at Eagle Fang. That's probably the route I can see him going. But in regards to the rest of Terry's character, I'm just fascinated to where he's going to go from here. And this is just how great the creators of this show are. And, you know, it's not like Season 4 was my favourite season, as I've said a million times before. But there are so many moments this season that are so inch perfect. And you almost feel sorry for Terry. You almost feel like heartbroken that he's now back to his original state, if not worse. And what should have been, you know, I think we can look at the Season 3 finale, and as much as I love Season 4's finale, nothing will beat the hype of that Season 3 finale. That was insane. You had Robbie's dark side turn, Johnny and Daniel coming together, Kreese calling Silva, like the army was assembling, and to know that, you know, everything that's happened this season and looking back on that, it's almost like, man, how epic was it in the moment, but man, it's a tragedy. Like, it's actually tragic. And I think what Terry's whole issue with Kreese in this situation isn't that he brought up his PTSD. Terry feels used. He feels like, you know what, you didn't bring me back because you wanted me. You brought me back because you don't have Johnny. You brought me back because you wanted to get at him. That's what it's about. He feels second fiddle to Johnny. And normally a more balanced Silva would say, you know what, I can understand, he's your champion. But when Kreese started plucking away at him, Terry started to descend into that madness. And then Kreese was like, I am your strength, yada, yada, yada. And he's like, yes, there it is. How many times do you expect me to repay that debt before we're square? And I gotta say that holds true. That no matter what someone does for you, trying to hold it over them their whole life, you can push them to a situation like this. And I almost feel kind of sad for Kreese in a way, because he's inevitably caused what he didn't intend to set out to do. I wouldn't mind Stingray getting a Cobra Kai dojo next season, just saying. We got, you know, if he's getting a beating to a pulp, we've got to pay that off with something. But I love Silva's dark side twist. He's just like, John, what did you do? Don't worry, I'm sure I can find a Cobra Kai friend or two to help me out with the dojos while you deal with your legal trouble. Mike Barnes. Probably Snake and Dennis, Stingray. There you go. And his threat to Johnny, that's all Kreese is gonna be thinking about while he's in the slammer. While Kreese is beating up, you know, inmates inside, that's all he's gonna be thinking about. He'll probably get an extra charge for decking that police officer in the face. But I think the real concern here, going forward, is that now no one is there to tame Terry. Now, a focused Terry is a dangerous Terry, but an unstable Terry is even worse. And the fact that he's playing, like, it's very meta, it's very Deadpoolish, where he's basically, you know, conducting his theme while he's drinking the champagne or the wine, and, you know, it's perfect, but it's heartbreaking. Guys and girls, jump in the comment section down below. Let me know what you thought of this video that I did here. Let me know what you thought of Terry's arc this season. Let me know if you agree with any of the points I've raised. And man, what a reintroduction. What an in-depth look at the character. What a great twist for his character. And I absolutely love that he didn't come back as the Terry Silva we know and love fully. He was different but sane, as one of the episodes titled. But then, as the season progresses, he starts to descend into that madness and transcend into further darkness, to the point where I don't think he's going to get out of this. I think Terry's stuck in this now. I think this is something that I think is applicable to the real world. Again, I think many veterans come out and they can never go back, because the horrors of war are too strong. But guys and girls, we're marching forward to 7K over here. Jump in the comment section down below. Let me know your favourite Terry Silva moment this season. And yeah, just let me know what you think of Terry in general. Like, I mean, it's Terry, you know? We'll hold our students to a something more standard, provided, of course, you do the same.